Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses here on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And Calum, we weren't really sure what we were going to talk about on this episode because there's not been kind of a lot happening down AB24. We're hoping to have some signing news come in, but unfortunately we've had some quite sad news come in yesterday with the seems to be quite sudden passing of former Aberdeen and long-serving Scotland manager Craig Brown, who sadly passed away at the age of 82. So I think before we get into some of our usual nonsense that we do on these live episodes, we should start by paying a little tribute to Craig Brown. And of course, we've got that upcoming friendly against Preston in a few weeks, a team, of course, he managed as well. So maybe that friendly will take on a bit of a new meaning as well, with both clubs, I'm sure, looking to pay their respects to Craig Brown.
Absolutely. I saw Preston's post as well. They first of all, the amount of things on social media about him talking about the type of guy Craig Brown was, and how many clubs and things paid tribute to the man, and sort of speaks volumes. And Preston posted themselves, and in the replies, there were so many Preston fans saying, a real eye for a player and things like that. So it was clearly well thought of down the road as well. So it would be nice if the clubs could sort something out for that. But very, very sad news. Thoughts with the family. Me personally, it was the first manager sort of I remember properly, if I'm honest, watching his team. And it was when I first started going to games with my pals. So provided a lot of good memories for me there, and really steadied the ship at Aberdeen too, as well, and gave us a platform sort of to almost where we are now. If you think about the players he brought in, Johnny Hayes still here, amazingly. As Paul says, Russell Anderson, last captain to lift something in the famous red and white for us. Niall McGinn gave us many good memories, and Mark Reynolds as well proved to be a stalwart in McInnes's first few seasons too. A real shame, and it has been nice to see the tributes to him. But as I say, thoughts out with the family, because awful sad news.
Yeah, very, very sad news indeed. And kind of as Paul said in his comment as well, we were really in real trouble when Craig first took over. And I think, we owe a lot to Craig Brown for laying those foundations. You've identified a few key players already with Russell Anderson, Reynolds. But as Paul also says, Niall McGinn, what a signing he proved to be for us. And of course, Craig Brown brought Niall to the club and, put Niall in that kind of position in behind the 10 that saw him have so much success. And maybe without the kind of groundwork that Craig Brown did, we might not have had that platform for Derek McInnes to build and obviously bring that League Cup to Pittodrie. And, maybe some of the players, I think, certainly when Johnny and Niall first signed, I remember both of them speaking about Craig Brown's influence, and the way Craig Brown spoke about Pittodrie and his plans for the club kind of convinced them to come here. And I think that speaks quite highly of the man. And I know there's a lot of you watching live with us tonight will have probably been at various after dinner events, and Craig always spoke so well at them and always had a funny tale to tell. But what always struck me about Craig Brown was it didn't matter what the occasion was. He always had the time for that ordinary fan or, anybody linked with football. We never obviously got him on the podcast, but we've had Grant Campbell on the podcast previously. And of course, Grant Campbell did a good, I think it was a 2-parter he did with him, but was always prepared to give up his own time to speak to others and speak so happily about football. It was fun for him. And I know a lot of people, it was a bit too soon for me, will have had fond memories, of course, of Craig leading us to France in 98. And, I'm sure that Brazil game lives long in the memory for a lot of people, or certainly the group stage campaign. And it was obviously, he was the last manager to take us to World Cup. Hopefully Steve Clarke can correct that in 2026. But I think, the point you made, Calum, was the amount of tributes that have come in across the footballing world for Craig Brown just kind of sums him up. And obviously the comments that Paul Lambert, Colin Hendry were making as well about going back to that Brazil game when they were lining up in the tunnel and said, "Don't worry, lads, they're just shiting themselves as well." Just a way to like kind of ease that kind of tension and pressure. And I mean, yes, Craig Brown, some of the football here wasn't the best. We had a lot of 0-0s, but given what he was working with for some of the squad, he did a good job. And I'm still gutted about that semi-final, that the Rory Fallon screamer at Hampden, how that turned out. And who knows what could have happened if things had gone better for us on that day. But yeah, sad loss, because of course he was still working as an ambassador for the club and still going along to matches. And I think the tribute that Alan Burrows put out on his social media was very touching, very moving. And yeah, I think a lot of the tributes are very moving and kind of just sum up Craig Brown as a man that he was.
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of things from based off what you've said there. I mean, the last Scotland managers take Scotland to a World Cup. This hasn't happened in my lifetime. I'm only now are we getting to this stage where it's looking possible again. I think that's a testament to how he was a manager and as a person more. You mentioned Rory Fallon there, actually. I went to an under 19s game. It would have been at Pataudry, played Kilmarnock with an old pal of mine. And I remember Ryan Fraser and Declan McManus were playing. And Archie Knox and Craig Brown both there, as well as some of the players as well. And, we were sort of lurking around looking, could we get an autograph? Can we meet any of them? Get a photo or whatever? No one seemed that bothered. And then Craig Brown grabbed Rory Fallon and said, "I think there's some young boys here looking to get your autograph there, Rory." And that doesn't sound a lot, but to a young kid, that's everything. When you're just at this game and players that play for your boyhood club and the team you support, and you go every second Saturday to watch them. Just that little touch where he didn't need to do it, and it doesn't sound much, but it was just little things like that, it seems. And so many people have had so many stories about things like that, and that sort of shows. I feel like he had time for everyone, and they posted. The BBC said something about, or someone said something that works with the BBC, saying that when they were recording the Sacked in the Morning podcast, usually record for about an hour. With Craig Brown, he sat for 2 hours happily talking away to them, and it's just little things like that, making time for everyone. I think that really shows the type of person he was.
Yeah, and I think some of the youngsters during his time at Aberdeen, I noticed Jordan Brown posting, Dick McManus as well. So it just seemed that he had an impact on a lot of these guys in their careers, and was always willing to lend an ear if anyone wanted to speak about anything, and was also prepared to give advice. And as well, another memory I've got as well was, of course, when he moved from Motherwell to Aberdeen, and then we went back to Motherwell, and he had that touchline bust up with the Motherwell chairman at the time, so he wasn't afraid to hold his own as well. So a nice guy, but I'm sure he had a fiery side deep down as well. But he'll be greatly missed by all of Scottish football, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely. As Robbie's in the comments, Rob Milsom, a guy I've totally forgotten about. I saw him on social media as well, paying tribute. So many players that have played under him. Gavin Ray, Russell Anderson, all having lovely things to say about him. It's nice to see in a sad moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that game against Preston is going to see quite a lot of, probably tributes, as we said, paid. And it's just a shame, obviously, with the train strikes, maybe affects some of the crowds going down. But I noticed that the Granite City Supporters Club are running a bus down to that game. Are you still managing to get down? Because I saw that you were getting the train, but it's cancelled. Are you still planning on heading down?
I'm trying my best. I bought my train ticket, and then it's now says tickets coming soon. So I don't really know what's going on with that at all. But I'd like to make my way down somehow, anyhow. But it's looking not very likely. But I'll try my best.
Yeah, I got my tickets for the Turriff pre-season game today, so I've got the two games in a couple of weeks against Turriff and Fraserburgh, so I'm sorted for the Scottish games. I'll let you take care of the English ones, and between us, we'll have pre-season relatively covered.
Very kind.
So, with the players coming back for pre-season tomorrow, and I think, probably given the news that broke yesterday, there's no real surprise that potential signings, if they have been made, have kind of been delayed. I think you've got to kind of respect that in a sense. But it feels like the Graeme Shinnie signing is all but there, with, of course, the Daily Record breaking that he's back up north to hold more talks around signing a new 3-year deal at the club and also be given the captain's armband. It really feels around Graeme Shinnie just a matter of when, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I am delighted. I mean, it was always going to take a little bit longer with all the issues, sort of, with what was happening at Wigan, where it looked like they were going under and players could leave or free if they didn't get paid. And then all of a sudden, the day before that date was meant to happen, there was a new ownership. But it seems things have been ironed out, and I am very, very happy that Graeme Shinnie will be returning north. And I think hopefully a lot more will be coming in as well, because I'm getting a little bit nervous. Still plenty of time though, of course, but Graeme Shinnie would be an excellent place to start, giving them that armband, driving the standards on and off the park. And I'm just waiting patiently for it to be announced. Well, not so patiently, really.
I was going to say, there's no patience about you when it comes to signings. And
No.
I think there's maybe a few fans have got a bit of itchy feet around the fact that we've not got players come in terms of when the players are back from preseason. And I think, I noticed Ramadani's Instagram. It looks like he's still on holiday. So potentially Duke's going to still be on holiday because he was playing the African Cup of Nations qualifier. So let's all try and remain calm. If there's no pictures of Duke in preseason tomorrow, let's try and not think that he's maybe going elsewhere. Hopefully he will still be here when we're back in competitive action. Another kind of, I guess, player that we're waiting on remains to be Liam Scales. But on the other side, it looks like we're set to potentially get another Liverpool loanee with Rhys Williams being the name linked, the Liverpool centre half. Excited by that one, Calum?
Look, I can't say I've seen him all that much in action. However, 6'5", I'm happy. It's just immediately when I see a centre back at 6'5", I'm very, very happy. And people did some deep diving on what some Blackpool fans had said about him. Not very complimentary. However, of course, we have said the same about players in the past that have turned out all right. And Watford fans, yes, Watford fans saying some pretty bad stuff about Matty Pollock, Kel Roos from Derby, Angus MacDonald told the Swindon fans to fuck off. So, I'll try not read into it too much. 22 years old, already got relationships with some of our players, not just Leighton Clarkson, of course, agent Shaden and Jaden as well. So, congrats to them. But it'd be good to see us make use of this good relationship that we seem to have with Liverpool. Between the Ramsey deal, the Clarkson deal, if we can continue to exercise that good relationship, then I'm happy, because they're a big club. There will be a lot of young players there that won't quite make the grade, and if we can give them a chance here and then maybe persuade them to stay up like Leighton Clarkson has done, then I think it could be a good avenue for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Mark Leslie says, Wycombe fans also said Anthony Stewart was good, so never trust what fans say. But I think on Anthony Stewart, who we'll come on to a little bit later, when we did get George from the Wycombe Way on here, he did say that he wasn't a ball-playing defender, and Jim Goodwin just completely ignored that. So we've kind of got to remember that, we players need to play to the system in question. And Mark, there was a comment from you earlier before we actually went live about doing a draft 11 featuring players in the Craig Brown era that me and Calum have seen and are going to look into doing an episode on that based on, for those maybe that haven't been around the channel for a long period of time. We, of course, did a draft project 11 for the Denton McInnes era. So certainly something that we'll look into getting done as well in the meantime on that. But back to Rhys Williams, I was speaking to Jack Gill, who came on the show to give us a Liverpool point of view on Leighton Clarkson. And he's been, keeping in touch, last season around Leighton. And he dropped me a message. Well, he dropped the podcast page a message on Rhys himself. And I forgot to put it in the notes, so I'm just going to read it off the DM that he sent just now. So he said, Rhys Williams is an interesting one. Did a lot of work with our academy. As you know, he never really stood out to me, but in terms of his height and physique, he's a lot further developed than the rest, which is why I think he got a nod over the better youngsters than him when we were in the centre-back crisis they had a few seasons ago. He held his own then, but I feel like it hampered his development a bit, as he was nowhere near ready. Again, last year at Blackpool, he was in a team nowhere near good enough for the Championship, and therefore I think the fans looked to him with big expectations, as he'd been involved in our first team, but that he still needs time. I think he needs a big break, and at Aberdeen, I think he'll suit the league well. However, I don't like the idea of another loan. I think it's best for both him and the club he finds a new home. So interesting that Jack maybe sees the deal being better as a permanent rather than another loan. But I guess kind of a point that Jack makes is that, when we sign players from Liverpool, we come with expectations. But he only played 17 times for Blackpool last season. He was recalled in January, so hasn't played any football competitively since then. But if he's wanting to come and improve a point, I'll happily come here and improve a point. And he's got Angus MacDonald to play alongside as well.
Absolutely, and I mean it might be a loan deal to start off with for him. Might be the best option for him. Of course, we might not like this, but if he does well and performs well, he might be able to get a better permanent move than Aberdeen. However, we probably thought the same thing about Clarkson, and we might be able to tempt him to stay up north. So I think a loan deal in a sense of try before you potentially buy could work, and. I'm excited, and as you mentioned about him not playing the second half of the season, at least at first team level, that's why I would love him to be in this week, right at the start of pre-season, get him up to speed, involved in all the friendlies, and hopefully he'll have some more new signings alongside him at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I was speaking to my friend Sarah and said, who's a Liverpool fan, and I said to her that as much as she likes Jurgen Klopp, this is still going to need a lot more work to forgive him for recalling Danny Ward, but he's doing his best with trying to give us more talent. Of course, Harvey Blair, I think, was a Liverpool winger, was also linked to us as well. So if we want to just be set up as a feeder club for Liverpool's best talent, then I'm here for it, as long as they perform to the levels that both Leighton and Danny have performed to. But they've set the standard very high.
Yeah, but I absolutely agree. I mean, they could both come up here, save petrol at the same time as well.
Yeah, might as well. There was someone, Andy Rankin tweeted us this evening before we came live, and I think Robbie Hanratty also made a comment about it tonight on the live so far. But I'll pick up on what Andy tweeted us. He said, "What is the consensus on what we need with still need? Because I think we are still quite short. Thinking we need at least 4 starters, centre back, he said 2, left back, and a number 10 type midfielder. After that, backup keeper, which a lot of people seem to still be kind of clamouring for, despite the fact that Joe Lewis is still contracted to us for another season, and possibly a backup / development midfield and right back." What would you say is a number of signings you would be expecting to see between now and the start of the season?
Start of the season, okay. For start of the league season, I would expect a left back, at least 2 centre backs. So Rhys Williams potentially being one of them. Graeme Shinnie, 4, and then I would probably like before the start of the league season another forward option, whether that be a winger or a 10 or both, a la Teklich, which appears to have fallen off. Then I would be very happy. That last one maybe not essential before the start of the league season, but then in addition to that, so that's 5, and then in addition to that, I would like a backup goalkeeper that is Scottish, so that we can register him as another player for the Europa League that helps reach the quota and is there if we need it. With Ross Doon and Connor Hazard mentioned, I suppose they don't actually need to be Scottish as long as they've trained in Scotland for 3 years between 15 and 21. So there we go. Thank you, Football Manager. So there we go. 5 before the start of the league season. So just over a month, 5 signings, Shinnie included as one of them, Rhys Williams as another. It's not too much to ask for, I wouldn't feel.
It's not too much to ask for, but I would have kind of liked to have probably 3 of that 5 in by Sunday, Monday before the club head over to Portugal. Because I think, as Jim Goodwin mentioned last season, probably the trips away are a good opportunity for the players to bond, players to get to know each other in that good environment, of course. We also have Vicente Bizauin back and available, and interesting to see what he cooks up this season. I'm sure eager to prove a point after what was, I'm sure, a frustrating end to his Aberdeen time last season. Anthony Stewart, of course, back. Could he be one of the centre half options that you allude to? Because I saw you tweet about the fact that Vicente could be considered a new signing. And then you've also got Dante Polvara, who ended his time at Charleston Battery with a man of the match performance and grabbing himself an assist. Coming back into that, maybe as Andy says, maybe development midfielder sort of position.
Possibly. I am delighted about the return of the little Marshall boy, though. Sticky toffee puddings across the northeast should watch out. I'm very happy about that. I still think we need another sort of forward player in addition to him. If Anthony Stewart is going to be involved, which I don't expect he would be, I would still like another 2 centre-backs in, just because lots of football. We're probably going to, I feel like maybe in Europe we might shift back to that sort of 5 at the back. We're going to need at least, well, we're probably going to need 4 centre-backs. I mean, Jack Milne, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Yeah. And with Dante Polvara, I'd love for it to work out, mainly because he's just a big 6'5" American guy. We've not seen a lot from him. And you never know. Maybe Barry's the man to take him on to that next level. And I suppose with, let's presume Shinnie signs Ramadani, Barron and Clarkson, there probably isn't much room for another centre midfielder unless it's someone like Polvara who's going to know their role. They're going to be a rotational piece. And maybe if it fits that mould and it saves transfer fees or whatever, it saves a bit of bother on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens. You put a tweet out on the Twitter page at RTG_podcast if you don't follow us on Twitter, asking out of the players who you felt were realistic but we have not been linked to so far, who would fans like to see? It was good to see that folk did not take the realistic option straight away by suggesting we try and sign Ronaldo because he's coming back to Europe. But good to see various suggestions coming in to that tweet. But we both kind of have picked up a couple of players each. I'll let you go first on some of the suggestions that you had, Calum. You need to take yourself off mute, would be very helpful.
Good point. Thanks very much. It's good to know I don't just do that in Teams meetings, so that's fine. Of the players suggested, a latest one from Annie McPherson, my coat was pretty good, by the way, fair play. I enjoyed that. At first I was like, oh, who's that? No, not a real player. Mark O'Hara was one that I'd sort of mentioned previously. I think he's a good midfielder. He'd be a good option. Scottish as well, so fits that sort of criteria that we might be looking for. However, with the aforementioned midfielders already in, I'm not sure how likely that would be. Victor Loturi is sort of another one from Ross County. He looks pretty capable at times in a poor Ross County squad, which is interesting. Dylan Smith at Ross County from Sharon Forbes was a good suggestion, I felt. A young centre-back, so he could develop, learn from, likes of McDonald, perhaps. I think he's 16 still, or maybe perhaps he goes back on loan to Ross County. I don't know. Is that a waste? I would quite like that as well. And
the follow-up point that Sharon made on Dylan Smith, because I think someone said about his age, being a young guy, but he fits the profile, is what she said about kind of us bringing in players, developing them, and then selling them on for profit, which I thought was a very good point. And yeah, you were very impressed by him up in the most recent meeting between the two sides as well. Obviously, if we did sign him, he would be suspended for the start of the league campaign anyway. But he would certainly tick the homegrown box for Europe.
Absolutely. I saw someone suggested Stefan Johansson, free after leaving QPR. There was a little bit of a Twitter rumour that seems to have gone quiet, that he was spotted at Aberdeen Airport. But perhaps that's just kept under wraps and still quiet, until maybe Shinnie, Williams are out the way, and a flurry this week. You never know. For him, I would actually be quite happy. Unfortunately, he played for Celtic. However, very comfortable in centre midfield, can play as sort of more of a holding midfielder or slightly more in behind. I have seen some QPR fans say his legs were sort of going this season, perhaps as a creative 10 who's got experience at the Championship level, played in the Champions League or whatever with Celtic too. So there's a few interesting ones. Was there any that caught your eye, Glenn, before we move on to our options?
Well, I saw this one from David McLennan, and I guess with Ryan Fraser frozen out at your beloved Newcastle, would he come back? Would we want him back? Wages would be an issue. I guess. I saw
slightly.
I saw a few people also suggest Michael Rose, of course, again, would be looking at the centre back options. Again, a player that was in our midst in terms of the youth ranks, but again, wages could be another problem. As Lee Seymour suggests, Martin Boyle was another name. Again, links to Aberdeen as well, but I would happily take him, but I just don't think he would come, to be honest. But I certainly think a few folk are going to be on Flight Tracker over the next few days. I love that app so much. Anybody that's flying, I'll track their flight, where they're coming, going. And I remember when I sent to you, as it was Stu McCombie had sent to me on WhatsApp, that there was two private jets had come in the other week, one from Southampton and one from Lyon. Nothing developed out of them, but it's just funny how everyone finds a private jet to track into Aberdeen, and immediately it's a signing, unless you get Marley Watkins giving away the plane's flight code.
That's true. Another mention that I liked from the Sheep 1903 on Twitter was Andre Fanar Balderson, which would be a mouthful, which would be entertaining enough as it is, trying to see Rob McLean get his tongue around that one. Pause. Although he'll be probably on loan from Bologna, who we hopefully have good relations with. 6'2", 21-year-old Icelandic midfielder who's already played 9 times for the national team. I thought that was an interesting one, and just one I'd get excited about, because Icelandic on loan from Bologna, it would just be fun, wouldn't it?
If you're on the replies to the Twitter page as well, you can maybe go and scroll and see and find it. There was a guy Mitch, who is in Japan. He suggested a Japanese player, of course, Alan who listens in Sydney. He suggested a few A-League players as well, and I saw a few of you also suggest players based in Scandinavia. And I think it's good now that, based on what we've been doing in terms of the transfer market recently, us as fans are now broadening our horizons to looking at players out with Scotland. Although admittedly, the players that I've got to suggest are all playing here domestically. But if us as fans can highlight some of these players, I remember when Alan was on the show, he mentioned Keanu Bacchus, who of course has gone to St Mirren. Both of us are big fans of him. So we've got fans that can identify these players. I'm sure we've got scouts doing the exact same as well.
Absolutely. I've found the reply you're talking about. Did you just mention it because you want me to try and pronounce the Japanese name?
No, not at all.
Takehiro Akamoto. Who is apparently, according to Mitch, very, very versatile, who can do all positions Hayes can do at the moment and play as a striker. So good utility, man. Big fan of that. Quick and not afraid to go hard in challenges compared to usual Japanese players, he says. And physically strong for his size. Bit of a shithouse merchant as well, so fitting mentality for Scotland. Big fan of that. Do you want to suggest name your players that you perhaps like us to see sign? And I'll go through some Instagram ones and then my two that I mentioned on Twitter anyway.
Yeah, so the first one that I said to you, and I was quite surprised not to see it mentioned on Twitter. So as I don't see the Instagram replies, so I don't know if it was mentioned in there. Was considering I feel we need another left back. Harry Milne, formerly of Cove Rangers, currently at Partick Thistle, made it into the SPFL Championship team of the team of the year, as well, and has certainly been attracting interest from other Premiership teams. Hibs, shock. So it'd be quite funny to beat them to another signing. So he would be my first suggestion. In terms of like a forward player, I don't know now that we signed Esther Stokelair if we need him, but Dikpo Akinyemi from Ayr was obviously one that I was thinking of. But at Airdrie, a player who did really well last season, we've seen teams previously go down to the lower leagues and pick off gems from there. You've got both Callum Morrison at Falkirk and Callum Gallagher at Airdrie, but both of them are more wingers / forwards, and I don't know if we really need that sort of area. I'd kind of like to see us strengthen more defensively. So that was why Harry Milne, and I had Dylan Smith down as well as another option. So that would be my kind of two defensive-minded players I'd be looking at.
I'd be interested to see if Harry Milne could make the step back up. Step up at all, actually.
Well, I thought he held his own in the... I don't know about you, but certainly the game that we played against them in the Cup, I thought he played very well. I mean, I don't know if we were exactly amazing, and I know he was up against Shaden Morris for certainly the last half hour, but I thought he more than held his own, and he's certainly bulked up a lot from his Cove days.
Yeah, that's fair. Simi of the Emma variety, not Neil, suggested Stefan Johansson on Instagram as well. You can follow us at rtg.podcast there if you fancy getting involved. I'll maybe do some more polls for upcoming episodes. So if you want to get your suggestions in nice and early, get involved in that. Liam Bell suggested Stuart Finlay, which I quite like. Left-sided defender. If Scales isn't coming back, then left-sided defenders hard to come by. Fits the Scottish quota. Knows he can do it in this league. I like that shout. Eric Reeve said Max Lowe. Personally, I'd love it. And I did see a car that had MA and then Lowe without the E in Aberdeen yesterday. So I was like, oh, maybe you never know.
You've got to be careful because folk are going to suddenly take that as he's been up in Aberdeen. And it's funny because I did think that when they got promoted to the Premier League, I was like, I don't know if he's a Premier League player. But
I don't know if he's a Premiership player, mind you. There might be a level in between there.
I thought he was all right.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking that he might not make that drop from the Premier League to cinch Premiership to play Ross County away. Bradley Dack was mentioned. Sean Rooney. I'm not sure if that's necessarily likely with his beloved Bruni at Fleetwood Town.
I suppose though Fleetwood have got a bit of issue at director boardroom level. I'm pretty sure their owner is away to go to prison, so there could be maybe some options to.
Oh wow! Harry Rothney said left back suggested swap Stewart for Behich maybe, which would be interesting. Certainly. Scales, please. And Ali Love Sheep also said, reckon we should have a look at Bacchus.
Yeah.
My suggestions that I've left on Twitter, largely Football Manager based on that. Well, that's the reason I knew who they were. Because I knew their contracts were up at the end of the season. Yaku Miti, we could call him Mighty Miti. He is a strong player. Leaving Reading when his contract expires on the 30th of the 6th. 7 goal contributions, can play as a striker, winger on either side. I would be happy with that if we were going to play with wingers. It's an alternative to Duke, sort of more like for like, because he can also do those positions. And Josh Martin was another one, 21 years old, leaving Norwich. Looks technically very, very good, if not a little bit lightweight, and looks like he's got a good eye for a pass. Also would be free. So that was my two. It feels like we've just got the UK and Ireland scouting package on Football Manager 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that the point that Stephen McPhee Music makes, good to have you along tonight, Stephen, that we need the whole squad to be okay with rotation this season. Egos at the door. Thankfully, we lost one ego last season of Jim Goodwin departing. But I think I trust Barry Robson to deal with that better than Jim Goodwin would have dealt with it. And I'm sure a lot of the players will be aware that maybe some that were frustrated at lack of minutes last season will maybe get more this season with, of course, the amount of games. I'm also interested to see how Barry Robson deals with the kind of tactical side of maybe having to change formation from a Thursday to a Sunday and how those players deal with it. And Andy Wright asks, is Babbage going to get a chance this year? What's your thoughts on that, Calum?
Well, if we don't sign another player who could play in that forward role as a striker, then I would say definitely he'll get some minutes, which I think I would be happy with just sort of bleeding him in slowly, because he's very, very young and, definitely not ready, you'd feel like, physically to play at this level sort of every week. I don't know what happened there, because that could be very detrimental on a young body. So I would like to see him sort of bleeding in, getting 10, 15, 20 minutes here or there when, perhaps we are comfortable at home, a couple goals ahead, and do have another game coming up quickly. I just don't know if even on loan might be too early right now, because, as I say, don't want to play him too many games at such a young age, because that can have awful, awful effects whilst he's still developing.
Yeah, but I suppose if we got like a lower league team, maybe like a League Two team, like what we did last season, Allen away in the League Cup, I'd be like happy to give him minutes against them, or significant minutes for that. Yeah, and go.
Sorry, Andy. You saw what happened to him, didn't you? Made of glass by the age of 30. Don't want that, do we?
Well, I mean, Michael Owen was scoring plenty of goals before he was 30, but I'm happy if Babbage was doing that. But if we get the best out of him before his career ends, then that'll be fine by me. But going back to the point that Stephen made about egos, I think Ewan makes a good point. I'm sure Shinnie coming with getting the armband, as he says, Captain Shinnie will keep egos in line, a leader by example. And again, I think that's probably a fair point, because at times last season, I don't really think we had many leaders on the pitch when our captain went into hiding or got himself sent off. But do you think we'll see Anthony Stewart this season, Calum? As we said, of course, pre-season back tomorrow. I have to say, I think some of the criticism leveled at him on social media, certainly over the last couple of days, feels a bit over the top, feels very personal, which I think is pretty much uncalled for. Yes, he wasn't the best. Yes, he was obviously part of the worst week in our history, but I still don't think that deserves direct personal abuse, regardless of what you think of his ability. But I'm not saying Barry Robson's a miracle worker, but keeping things simple could work for Anthony Stewart. Or, as someone else said, on the other flip of the coin is, he could make Angus MacDonald nervous and bring Angus MacDonald down, as we saw with other pairings last season.
I can't see him playing competitive football for us this season. I think it probably would be best for everyone if we just sort of part ways and he gets to move back down south where he can sort of be more comfortable and things, because it didn't work out for many, probably fans. The bridge is probably burned already. I'm not saying it wouldn't work in Robson's system that he was playing last season. However, I'm just not sure we will still be playing the same kind of football. At least not every week last season. A lot of what Robson was doing was using the tools that he had rather than what we could potentially get this summer. I can't see it happening, and I think although as a sort of penalty box defender, most of the time, not all of the time, granted, he looked fine. I just think we need to be looking at people who can do that, but also play a little bit. I'm not saying, they're Franz Beckenbauer back there, but can play a little bit when we're at home and when the onus is on us and we will have a lot of the ball. We can't just have people shilling passes out to the wings and then eventually out off the park. We can't be having that.
No, that's true, and it'll be interesting. I think, would you be opposed to seeing him loaned out for a whole season that just runs down his contract and then we get nothing for him come the end of the season?
Absolutely not. If they pay his wages, I mean, that's fine and it works for everyone. I mean, teams probably aren't very likely to pay a fee for a centre-back at his age. I'd be happy with that. Or if it's just contract done, allow someone to sign him permanently for free. And there's just sort of no love and no finances lost, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And one player that looks set not to join the Dons, despite what seems to be a prolonged dragging out of a transfer saga, is Go Ahead Eagles centre defensive midfielder, Jay Idzes. I'm kind of glad we've pulled the plug on this deal because we used to be probably this would be a player that we would still be flirting with come August and just bending over to sign him. But the Dons taking a much stronger stance on players that are maybe stringing us along, waiting for other options or weighing up other options, and has allowed us to move on to new targets. Do you feel this deal is dead in the water, or do you think this may be one that we revisit again come transfer deadline day?
I would presume it's dead in the water. I personally don't want a player that doesn't want to be here. I feel like when the going gets tough, they will not be the tough to get going. And there were sort of rumours that he'd chosen Venezia over us. Clearly preferring their kits over our new away one, and clearly preferring Canals to the Don and the D. But that's not been tied up either. So is he just doing the same thing to them as well? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because you would expect that to be done by now, given the fact we pulled out and that was the rumour days ago that was going to be the case. He was going to end up there. But whether that doesn't happen and then we maybe go again, potentially lower our offer and say, look, you've still not ended up anywhere else, I still wouldn't have him until he was in the red shirt, and then I'd be delighted just because it's Dutch.
Will I take that personally because I'm half Dutch? I don't know. You mentioned
I would be happy just because we've signed a Dutch player, just because he's Dutch. Defend the little muscle boy.
Yeah, and Calum, of course. You mentioned the new away kit there. What's your thoughts on it? You pre-ordered it, of course, coming out tomorrow.
I have pre-ordered it. When it was first night, I was like, oh my god, I love it. And then I was like, I wish the colours were a bit brighter. I wish the green or whatever it is was a bit more green, a bit more turquoise or teal. Instead, it's got a little bit white, but I still like it, and it'll be a collector's item, I'm sure. So yes, I have ordered it. I like it. It's nice. I'm happy. And, something different and not just a random template that's like Bayern's third kit as well. And we'll still have last season's away kit as our third kit. Where's the home kit, though? What's that about?
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised. I thought that would have been released by now, but I'll down to Pataudry tomorrow after work to pick up the away kit and then take it away with me as off to the Netherlands on Thursday. So show the Dutch a real kit. I'm sure a few of them will be.
If you see Jade says, let him know what for.
Yeah, well, I'm not really near there, but I'll see who I see at the airport. Maybe there'll be a wee player sitting on the plane on the way back on Sunday, so I'll let you know. Lee Seymour said, did you see Osasuna were expelled from the Conference League and replaced by Athletic Bilbao? Tell you, I would love to get Bilbao because that trip to San Sebastian to play Sociedad was really good. That would be great to get them if they go straight into the groups.
Yes, true. Wild what happened, by the way, because Osasuna, this is such a tangent, apparently kicked out because of some sort of allegations or things or irregularities or something like that happened about 10 years ago. And yet, Man City just getting away with murder. Barcelona get away with murder. So it doesn't really make any sense. Poor Osasuna.
Yeah. He also commented on the price of the kit being £60. Think it's pretty steep. Well, for those of you that've got DNA, at least you'll get it for free. If you're a season ticket holder, you at least get 10% off, is it? 20%? I can't remember. But I decided just to pick it up from store because I couldn't be arsed paying £4 to get it posted. But Jay says he likes it, but do you feel the kit is more of a marketing thing rather than something we'll actually wear? I think that's kind of the intelligence about it, because if it is a marketing thing, you just need to look at social media when the kit was released. Very much a Marmite kit. Folk will either love it, folk will either hate it. Speaking to a few of the guys at work who said they like it, and then some said they didn't, but their kids will love it, so they're going to have to buy it anyway. And I think, as you said, it's going to become a bit of a collector's item, and those that certainly collect football shirts, certainly the unique football shirts, will be all over that. And I think it's really telling as well that kit broke records from the sales of last season, when the two kits last season were, of course, based on that quite iconic design from 40 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's smart, and also just sort of maybe telling us now more where the direction's going and the club's going in terms of how they're going to market themselves and things. Because it had a lot of people talking, didn't it? And I suppose that's the aim of the game in football, really.
Yeah. Oh, you can only get a top on the highest tier of DNA. Didn't know there was tiers to DNA, but I'm not going to get into that point just now. On the point of Jay Idzes, Calum, we were discussing how we were going to drag out some content this week in terms of stuff to speak about, and we kind of spoke about whether or not Stephen Gunn trying to sign players is a bit like when you first meet a girl and you're trying to do a bit of flirting with him. And I just wonder if Stephen Gunn, when he first meets a player, it would be funny if there was like a Y Scout / Tinder and you're just going through looking at players' rating, and there's like swipe like them. They get like a notification that there's a club interested in them. But do you think like when Stephen Gunn's like messaging a player to show his interest, do you think he like waits an hour once a player replies, but like, don't be too keen, just keep it calm? And then like over like the few weeks, he's suddenly like messaging him every like 5 minutes, like straight in there.
Gunner's a veteran of the game. He has the Riz, as the kids call it these days, drowning in Riz. I reckon that there's a chance. Could you imagine if that was the case? I mean, no wonder we picked up Angus McDonald. That's a straight swipe.
Oh, that's a super like. Whoop.
Oh, exactly. It'd be interesting. That would be for sure. I reckon Gunn knows what he's doing. Do you reckon he can woo a player? Or does he leave that to Davey?
Oh, I don't know. Who do you think sends the Duke pics? No dick pics here, just straight pics of Duke. Here you go. Do you want to join Aberdeen? Bang, there's a pic of Duke. Actually, to be honest, I'd be sending that picture of Angus McDonald by the pool. Be like, do you want to be alongside this guy?
Exactly. Think of the Instagram followers. A couple posts with these guys, and you will be through the roof.
Do you think like he goes on to the folks' Instagrams and like once they follow him, just be like, scroll through, cheeky like, show him interested, and then drop a wee DM? Don't want to come across weird, but here's me.
You never. Oh wait, sorry. Ewan Grant. Nah, Stephen Guns goes straight in with ultra Riz topless photos. Look, if it works, it works apparently.
Cormac.
Jay Moyer. Cormac definitely does the DMs. He was looking up Conor Hazard. Yeah, he was. Not to find out what his availability was, just to message him, just to get in there.
Cormac gets the teeth out. Do you want teeth like these? Come up here and I'll give you a good wage.
Goodness me, what has this show become?
with a side of Rowies as well, since he can't have them because he's got a stock load waiting.
Oh, dearie me.
Do you think Gunnar also like speaks to a player for so long and he thinks, this is going really well, and then all of a sudden the player's just like, nah, just stops replying.
Just get aired. Yeah. Is that what they call it? Unmatched on Tinder.
It's not ghosted.
Ghosted, aired, same thing. I don't know. Love Island's on, isn't it? People did not come here for this.
I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah, it'd be like I was at a wedding at the weekend, and it's such an adult thing to do now. When you probably meet like I don't know if you've maybe got to that stage in your life yet, Calum, but
Nah, I'm a young boy.
you go to like an event and you've not seen people for a few years. Oh, it's great to see you. We really need to catch up. Like, we'll get something organized. And do you catch up? No. The next time you catch up is an event like in 2 years' time. Oh, great to see you again. Oh, we should really get that game of golf like organized. And Lewis, if you are listening, let's actually get that game of golf organized. But it's like, if folk go on holiday, oh, like, we'll catch up after your holiday, see how it was. Yeah, sure, yeah. Probably the person's got absolutely no intention of meeting up with you, like after their holiday, and then it just never happens. It's such an adult thing to do. Same, like, remember when we left the wedding? Oh yeah, we'll all organize something. We'll get a group thing going. Not heard from any of them since. So
that was absolutely what Jade says did.
yeah,
What you said there.
Yeah, I'll see you at Cormac Park.
Yeah.
Gunner's still sitting there waiting.
No. He was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll see you once you got a manager. I'll see you then. I'll see you once you got a manager. Oh, they finished third. Oh yeah. I'll see you once my contract expires. It's not happening.
No, it's not. Right, moving on, since we're getting too much into Love Island territory and folk are, as you said, are not here for that.
No.
Fixtures. They come out this Friday at 9 o'clock. As I said, I'll be in the Netherlands. That's why we're doing the show today. But we will be back next week, kind of catching up on the fixtures being released and hopefully a few more signings. What's the first fixture you would like, Calum?
Look, right. You're not going to enjoy this, Glen, but bear with me here, right? I am going to be away on the first weekend. However, strategically, me and all my mates all going away, and I was like, oh, let's make it somewhere central in Scotland so that we can still make it to the Aberdeen game. And then even if it's a home game, it'll be like an away game. However, it's nearby Stirling, so like Livingston away or something where, close to get to. If we're hungover, we can just roll out, get there, and then also potentially 3 points. I want an easy start. I don't know if Livingston away is that, but it's close by for me, so that'll be fine. I just like an easy start. Dundee away would be another one as well. They'll have their whole, we won the league, Tony Dock's there. That'll be interesting, him versus Barry Robson. And we've not done well in Dundee recently, despite winning 3-1 last time we were there. Yeah. I would like to start rectifying that and starting the season showing we mean business.
Yeah, I have to say I was really surprised because we put this out. Well, you put out on Instagram an hour ago, and I had it out on the Twitter page from Monday. I have to say I was really surprised by the amount of people that want to play Rangers first at home, like Adam Heddle does, to kind of get that statement win. Again, the joint most popular answer was Dundee, but as you rightly point out, that would need to be away. We can't face Dundee at home. Same with Celtic. Both Celtic and Dundee will probably have home fixtures, given it'll be Flag Day for both of their respective title wins. But yeah, I think for me, it would have to be Dundee would be the first one that I would look to. If not, give me St Johnstone or Kilmarnock at home. Get that shite fixtures out the way. I have to say, fair play to Rustler83, who said he would take Celtic away first up. I think he was the only person that said he would happily take Celtic, although I do see Tom Bell in the comments also saying Celtic home or away. I get that, people wanting to get that fixture done and dusted, but make that fixture 11. Because I was speaking to an Everton fan at work this week, and he was like, whenever the fixtures come out, I always look at the first 3-4, because if they're tough, you're always looking up for the next part of the season. You want to get points on the board, and then you're either in the middle of the pack or you're looking down on everybody. You've given yourself a bit of platform. And one of the replies that we got to the tweet was from Connor Douglas, who said he wants a strong run of lower half teams. As I was calling it cannon fodder, but I'll probably be made to eat my words on that. Because of course we've got the group stages to worry about when we get to September. So you do probably want a good run of fixtures before we get into, well, the playoff, of course, at the end of the month in August, and then the group games in September. Of course, there's an international break in September as well, that'll be broken up there. So you really want to have the points on the board before the squad and the team are going to be stretched by that Sunday, Thursday run of games, and where potentially injuries, fitness could catch up. Certainly, maybe fitness you'd hope not, by more meaning in terms of maybe the lack of experience from some of these players by playing those games in such quick succession. So yeah, I definitely think Connor hit the nail on the head there by wanting that run of games, certainly favourably. I want a home game first, purely because if we're away second, we've got our Works barbecue on the 12th. Although that game could be moved to a Sunday if you get Hibs or Hearts, because they're in European action on the Thursday before. But there's a lot of us, of course, that will be at Pittodrie for the first home game of the season, so we'll be patching that barbecue if we're at home second.
I mean, yeah, you're going to be there, so it doesn't matter. I would tend to agree with what your point about that Connor said about getting easy games. Well, there's no easy games in football. Getting the games where you're more likely to get a win, so you can get points on the board. However, there's also on the flip side of that where maybe you want one or two of them get a win, build the match sharpness, and then a couple of the bigger ones. Maybe not Celtic or Rangers, but Hearts, Hibs, big games where you think, okay, you've got a good chance here. Because then if they come in then before you're playing sort of Thursday, Sunday, and then you get some of the easier ones in the Sundays, then there's more chance of picking up points. I don't know. It's got to be an interesting one. On Instagram, because we also asked this on Instagram, rtg.podcast, Amy Reed said, Hearts at home, so we can watch them fall apart all over again, which I liked. Connor Bruce said, pumping attendance FC. Rhys Matthew, Dundee away. I agree. And Adam McCrory said Dundee United away. Lol. Funny. And Rangers at home was a suggestion as well. That would be tasty. It would be tasty.
Yeah, and I think that point that you made about Hearts, and obviously Amy and Connor alluded to as well, beating them. Going to pick up the point from you and first that's on screen just now. We said we want a nice build up to the European playoff tie, increasing difficulty to that point. Maybe like picking up on the fact that you could play Hearts second or third in the league, because that would be just falling before our playoff, but they would also have been playing Thursday games. So potentially they could have had a long European trip. I know that Hibs have got trip to Andorra or Faroes awaiting them just now. I think that's another going to be a key factor for us, is how our fixtures work out. Certainly once the European fixtures are decided, if we've got to do, we've got a long away trip and then we're traipsing down to Kilmarnock on a Sunday, that's going to be an absolute killer for us. So hopefully a few home games thrown in there after the Thursday night exploits, especially the away games in that as well. But I love this time of year, seeing how you start thinking, we do this a lot on the podcast as well, saying, hey, that should be 9 out of 9 from the first 3 games. How many points do we need before the September international break? Where should we see ourselves around Christmas, etc., etc.? And of course, it never goes to plan. But it's the fun of it. And again, Andy Wright also backing up that point. Having a Hearts or Hibs would be decent first, so the guys get switched on quick and ready for Europe. But I guess, again, Hearts and Hibs, maybe certainly more Hibs would have one eye on their European games coming up. Stephen also pointing out the fact that Reading are in a bit of disarray in terms of looking players, so there may be players that we could look to exploit from there.
Mighty.
Yeah. In terms of it. Now, the other question I asked as well on the backup on that fixture announcements was, what is, outside of the opening day fixture, is the first fixtures that you then go and look for, Calum, and what would be that in your case?
Oh, there's so many to get excited about. County away, obviously. Used to be Dundee United away. last season. That was fun for a while, wasn't it? However, Dundee, quite like it. Nice short journey. Usually a good day out, and then also Hearts and Hibs away. Quite like them, despite the fact we always lose. So it's just pretty fun. Never Celtic or Rangers away, ever. Maybe more Rangers at home.
Yeah. No, for me, the first ones I then tend to look at would be the festive fixtures, who we've got before Christmas, Boxing Day, although it's never really Boxing Day anymore, and then the New Year's game. They were really shit this year, so hopefully we've got better next season. I always like a home game on Boxing Day and an away game on New Year is what I like. There's always the games you get good crowds at. Everybody's home for Christmas, and it's always a good day out as well. And then, I always look the same as you. Trip to the capital. A few folk as well saying that they look out for games in and around their birthdays. Fortunately, when your birthday is before the season starts, it's normally a pre-season game on it. Although I think the only time I've ever played on my birthday was when I was in San Sebastian for the Real Sociedad game. And then, of course, you and Duthie made the point as well that remember that when the fixtures are announced, certainly those that don't stay in Aberdeen and maybe look to be booking up travel, remember to check with what the dates of the European games are going to be, because of course those games will all be moved to Sundays. And of course remember that Sky Sports, I'm sure, will do us over with a few fixture changes as well for TV. So we'll see what comes of that. But we're getting close, Calum, to football being back. It's 2 weeks tomorrow. Of course, if you're 2 weeks today, if you're listening on audio or catching up on this on Wednesday, that we play our first pre-season game domestically against Turriff United. Tickets on sale at Maddie's in Turriff. Dean Donaldson's coaching at Banks D. But also, if you email Turriff United directly, they'll send you their bank details. Seems really secure, and then you can pay for your tickets and pick them up from Turriff on match day as well. And then we travel to Fraserburgh 2 weeks on Saturday. Again, tickets available from the Butchers up in Fraserburgh or VT Wealth in Bridgedon. I'm sure both games will be very well attended from both sets of fans. Looking forward to getting back to watching football.
As am I, but why is it all so backwards, guys? Just sort out some sort of internet process. Surely Aberdeen can take the lead on that.
Yeah, or just do pay at the gate. I don't understand. I can understand why Fraserburgh are, because Fraserburgh have been doing that for a while for their bigger games. Obviously, I had experience with that last season, but I just don't understand why Turriff have made it so difficult up until recently.
This is a good comment. Imagine if they don't start doing that and Dave would just ping use PayPal, Jay Moyer. Wouldn't be surprised. And you know what? If it gets us another Leighton Clarkson, happy. Sign me up.
Yeah. No. So as I said, we'll be back. We'll do another live next week, discussing the fixtures, how the Dons are getting on in Portugal. I think we'll maybe be getting a game over there. So we'll maybe see if we can find out some information around that and try and time it for that as well. But if you follow us on the socials, we'll get that information out to you. But I think, Calum, for the first time in a long time doing these lives, we've had over 3 figures tuning in. So thank you very much for your support on the live tonight. And we're closing in on 1,600 subscribers on YouTube. So if you are new to the channel for the first time tonight, not only hit that like button, remember to hit that subscribe button as well, and you'll get notified of all future videos. And Mark Leslie will look into that idea of doing a draft project episode based on the Craig Brown team as well. Thank you very much for your ideas. And if you do have any ideas for other content you would like us to produce, or any suggestions you want us to discuss on future shows, drop us a DM directly, or at the Twitter page or the Instagram page, which is rtg.podcast. Well, we love to hear your suggestions. And there was a few suggestions based on our previous Love Island chat. I was going to claim it as a forfeit for you to get out of shaving your mustache instead, but maybe we should look at that for later on in this season.
Okay, I don't like this suggestion. Can Calum get an image consultation, please? No more suggestions, please. We've had enough suggestions now. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be back next week on Red Tinted Glasses.